What's up with y'all, man? It's your boy Chris, man, and I don't really like RPGs that much. Alright, let me bring it back. What's up with y'all, man? It's your boy Chris, man, and I don't really play a whole lot of RPGs, but I'm here to fix that. This is Non-RPG Fan Plays. Now, I actually grew up with the Super Nintendo. It was technically the first video game system I ever had. And I say technically because I shared it with my sister, as well as a Sega Game Gear. I don't have a Sega Game Gear. That makes me sad. Alright, so for those of you who are like 5 minutes old, this right here is a Super Nintendo. You play the game by putting it in the cartridge slot, just like so. Now, when I actually really think about it, me and my sister had a whole different variety of Super Nintendo games. We had sports games, racing games, even some fun platformers. Back in the 90s, I had no idea what an RPG game was. But today, I'm old, and I can make my own decisions. That's why I decided to play today's game, Illusion of Gaia, an RPG game released here in America in 1994 for the Super Nintendo. So our main character is named Will, a boy from the fictional town of South Cape. Will lives with his grandparents due to the passing of his mother and father. Around here is where you meet Gaia, a talking statue thing you meet in what I can only imagine what Limbo looks like. Gaia tells Will of a comet that's headed for Earth, and upon impact will totally transform this place into an evil, evil world. Will's told that he's the chosen one, and by collecting all the mystic statues around the world, he will save Earth. Before I say anything else, I gotta admit, this game is really pretty. For a game that's 30 years old at the time making this, it's a really great game to look at. Anyways, Will comes home from hanging with his friends, arrives to a pig named Hamlet, making a mess in his grandparents' house. Hamlet belongs to a princess named Kara, who has run away from her home of King Edward's castle. It's not long until the knights of her castle track her down and bring her back. Will apparently has to bring something to King Edward, so he goes ahead and pays a visit to the king and queen. Will somehow pisses off the king and is sent to prison underneath the castle. Time passes, and Will's once again greeted by Kara's pig. The pig brings a note from Kara, who's aware of his arrest. In the note, Kara tells Will that she'll be running away and that Hamlet has the key to unlock Will's prison door. Will takes the key and makes for the exit. On his way out, he decides to visit Kara in her castle tower. Kara and Will decide to both run away, and this is where your adventure begins. You enter your first dungeon, and you get your first look at the combat mechanics of this game. For someone who likes a more simplistic playstyle, I was actually into this. The levels in this game are sectioned off by different rooms filled with different enemies. If you defeat all the enemies in a room you're in, you're given rewards that can either restore your health, increase the amount of health you can have, and increase your attack power. Sometimes when you defeat a certain group of enemies, they'll explode, opening a pathway that leads to different areas. Will has the special ability to shapeshift into two different forms, the Dark Knight Freedom and the body of energy named Shadow. Shadow you really don't get to play as much because he's actually unlocked a little bit later in the game. You transform into them by entering into Gaia's room, where you can learn new moves and abilities for each character, as well as save your game. Each form has different abilities. Like Freedom, he can use projectile attacks by holding down your attack button and releasing it, and Shadow can shrink and travel between different floors of dungeons. This is cool and all, but that ability for Shadow is only used in one dungeon in the game. The world you travel in takes place as an alternate version of Earth. You have fictional places as well as real-life areas such as the Egyptian pyramids, the Great Wall of China. It's all pretty cool. The game's got different bosses you face after completing each dungeon. The difficulty of each boss is really inconsistent though. Like some bosses take a few tries, others I literally defeated in just one shot. The first boss, in all honesty, was the hardest for me. It shit took me like 9 or 10 times to beat this guy, but eventually I finally did it. Thankfully, it's not one of those games that, have the bosses that are so frustrating where you're just like, man, I'll come back to this when I'm ready, or I'll come back to this later. And I don't know about y'all, but sometimes it's happened to me, and I've set the controller down for so long, I don't even want to come back to the game. Because knowing what I'm coming back to, I'm just like, no, I'm good, bro. Like, I don't even want to deal with that shit. You guys let me know in the comments if that's ever happened to you. Music in this game's okay. Nothing really stands out. And that's the thing that's kind of disappointing as well. I mean, everything in this game was just average. It was just mid-tier, it was okay. It did the job. I mean, you got your standard stuff. You got your battle theme. you got your walking through village theme. And then you got a few more other songs in the game as well, but like everything else, they're all just okay. They're serviceable. They did what they needed to do and left. That's pretty much the vibe I get from this game. It's not offensive, it's not a bad time, it's all just fine. So Illusion of Gaia is a pretty fun game to play. It's got beautiful areas, cool combat system, and some decent enemies to fight. Story, on the other hand, it kind of had me confused at times. At first, I didn't even know why I was doing all this shit in the first place. And the funny thing is I guess I wasn't the only one that felt this way. You know, I did a little bit of research and I watched other people play the game and review it, and they were all kind of saying a similar thing. Not everybody always knew what was going on within the story. Characters are kind of bland too. I mean, you can tell like work was put in to flush them out, but it really just fell flat. It could just be because I'm coming off of Grania 2, which in my opinion had great characters. But when stuff happened to these characters in this game, I could really care less, to be honest. Like, at one point there's this dude that gets eaten by a whale, like so early in the game that I fucking forgot he even existed. It was really hard for me to show any kind of emotions for sympathy when stuff happened, just because there wasn't really a whole lot built between me and them. And that's unfortunate because I know some of the best RPGs out there have some of the best characters in video game history. Like, shout out my homie Frog from Chrono Trigger. What, you ain't think I know about Frog? Come on, that's Frog. Now, I should probably mention that I probably couldn't even beat this game without some sort of guide or manual telling me where to go. But you know what? That could just be an RPG thing. I'm not really going to hold too much against it. Overall, this is a pretty decent game. I don't feel like it wasted my time or anything. I just feel like it could have been so much better. Though I still recommend trying it because overall, it's still a pretty cool playthrough. It makes a great entry-level game for someone who's new to the genre like me. And you know what? It's cool. I've had a pretty decent time. Alright guys, so that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode. It's getting dark. I've been trying to film this outro for so long, and it's so funny how long a 20-second segment can take when you're trying to get everything you want correct. But it's your boy Chris, man. I just want to say thank y'all so much for stopping by, and thank you to all the new people checking in with non-RPG film plays. It's your boy Chris, man. Let me know in that comment section what game you guys want me to play next. It's your boy Chris, man, and I'm out this shit. Peace.